Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the utmost honor of inviting to the stage someone who has stood on the side of the Iranian people and their organized resistance over the span of 2 decades. He fought relentlessly for their rights and called for holding the ruthless rulers of Iran accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 48th Vice President of the United States, 50th Governor of Indiana, the Honorable Mike Pence.
Well, thank you, Anahita, and thank you all for that warm welcome. It is my great honor to welcome you back to our nation's capital for this Washington summit in support of a free and democratic Iran. It's an honor to address the Organization of Iranian American Communities and to share this podium today with a distinguished group of Americans that I deeply admire, who represent a cross-section of support in the United States for this cause. And let me be clear, I am here and they are here because we share a common cause: the liberation of the Iranian people from decades of tyranny and the rebirth of a free, peaceful, prosperous, and democratic Iran. So thank you all for your strong stand here across our country and for the people of Iran who long for liberty. To the President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Maryam Rajavi, my friend. To all of my friends watching from Ashraf 3. And to all who gather here today, I know I speak on behalf of tens of millions of Americans of both political parties and every political philosophy when I say from my heart, the American people support your goal of establishing a secular, democratic, non-nuclear Iranian republic that derives its powers from the consent of the governed. It's a privilege to be with so many wonderful Iranian Americans. You know, many American citizens trace their family roots to Iran. More than 1.5 million Americans were born in Iran, which means the United States is home to more members of the Iranian diaspora than any other nation on earth. And America's been incredibly enriched by their contributions to our culture, our economy, and our society. Most Iranian Americans came to the United States following the tragic events after the revolution in 1979. You chose to make America your home because you know that America is and will always remain the land of liberty, holding aloft the flame of freedom for our people and people around the world. But greatly to your credit, you did not forget those left behind. And for those that were left behind, I scarcely need to say to the families gathered here or in Albania looking on, or people in Iran that are looking on as well. Life has been full of misery and hardship since those days. What the Iranian people have endured since 1979 will be recorded by history as one of the great tragedies of the modern era. As a former elected leader, as an American citizen, as a Christian who believes that all people are created in the image of God, the Iranian people have always had a special place in my heart. In 2009, like so many other Americans, I remember watching with great hope and anticipation as the people of Iran began rising up to reclaim their birthright of freedom. In 2009's uprising, millions of courageous men and women filled the streets of Tehran and Tabriz. And what seemed like every city and village in between, they denounced a fraudulent election and demanded an end to decades of repression. Those brave protesters then looked to the leader of the free world for support. But as I saw firsthand as a member of the Congress of the United States, America remained silent. As a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, I recognized that the lack of action was simply an abdication of American leadership. The American cause is freedom. And in this cause, America must never be silent. Then, working with Democrat Congressman Howard Berman, we authored a resolution expressing America's support. Where our administration remained silent, leaders in both political parties stepped forward in the House of Representatives to stand with the courageous young Iranian protesters. I'm proud to say that resolution in that year passed almost unanimously in the House of Representatives, and then it passed unanimously in the United States Senate, and within a matter of days, the Obama administration joined the chorus of Americans supporting the cause of a free Iran. The American people are with you, yesterday, today, and always. Unfortunately, the Obama administration's half-hearted support and hesitation in speaking out ultimately emboldened Iran's tyrannical rulers. We remember the crackdown on the dissent that occurred and the brutality that followed. The 2009 uprising was ruthlessly put down. As I said at the time, what we were witnessing was a Tiananmen in Tehran. But the enduring hope for a free Iran can never be extinguished. And that is clearer to me today than ever before. I can see in your eyes, in the countenance and confidence in your face. I can see in the faces of the people that we met at Ashraf 3 when my wife and I traveled there not long ago. The people of Iran will someday be free. And I'm proud that under the Trump-Pence administration, America did not turn a deaf ear to the pleas of the Iranian people. We did not remain silent in the face of Iranian regime's countless atrocities, sowing violence across the region. We stood with the freedom-loving people in Iran. We canceled the Iran nuclear deal, which had flooded the regime's coffers with tens of billions of dollars, money that it used to repress its own people and support deadly terror attacks around the world. We imposed crippling new sanctions on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. We launched a campaign of maximum pressure, punishing the regime for its belligerent behavior and assault on its own citizens. We vigorously enforce sanctions to bring Iran's exports of oil to nearly zero and deny the regime its principal source of revenue. And we called on the free nations of the world to stand with us and with the Iranian people. We encourage world leaders to condemn Iran's unelected dictators and defend the Iranian people's unalienable right to determine their own destiny. In no uncertain terms, the Trump-Pence administration told our allies in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, that the JCPOA was a dangerous mistake that would cost the world dearly. We made it abundantly clear that the United States would never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. We confronted the regime's malign activities across the region and didn't hesitate to take decisive action to put an end to the most dangerous terrorist in the world. Qasem Soleimani is gone. On the day we left office, the Iranian regime was more isolated than ever before. But sadly, a new administration arrived in Washington, D.C. a little more than 2 years ago. And President Biden and his administration are threatening to unravel all the progress we made in marginalizing the tyrannical regime in Tehran. This administration has been working overtime to restore the Iran nuclear deal, putting Tehran back on a fast track, not to preventing it obtaining a nuclear weapon, but to ensuring its capacity to do so at some time in the future. In fact, the Biden administration has admitted that under a restored nuclear deal, Iran would be capable of amassing enough nuclear fuel for a bomb in less than 1 year, even faster than what was allowed under the previous deal. They even waived sanctions imposed by the Trump-Pence administration related to the Iranian regime's nuclear activities. And the Biden administration has even worked closely with Russia to revive talks for a new Iran nuclear deal, even as Vladimir Putin and the Russian army engage in their unprovoked and unconscionable invasion of Ukraine. These actions are ill-advised and unwise. Appeasement has never worked, and it never will. A renewed nuclear deal won't lead to peace and stability. It will lead to more terrorism, death, and destruction, and destabilize the region. A renewed deal won't block Iran's path to a nuclear bomb. It will pave it in gold. A renewed nuclear deal won't benefit the people of Iran in any way, shape, or form. It will empower and enrich the regime that has tormented and tortured the Iranian people for generations. So today, we call on the Biden administration to stand with the people of Iran, stand up for the cause of freedom and justice, and cease and desist all efforts in support of nuclear negotiations with Tehran. Peace is only possible with strength. After the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, I believe the adversaries of freedom in the world have been emboldened. They're emboldened to test our resolve. I believe that's in part what accounts for Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion in Ukraine. Ours was the only administration in the 21st century where Russia did not even attempt to redraw international lines by force. and there was a reason. And just as the free world must stand with the Iranian people against tyranny, let me say to my fellow countrymen gathered here, with America as the leader of the free world, we must ensure that the free world stands with the Ukrainian people to repel the Russian invasion. There's an old saying that weakness arouses evil. The evil now rising in Iran and around the world speaks to perception of weakness. And that too will change. But let me assure you, even if the policies of the current American administration appear weak, let there be no doubt the American people remain strong. And the American people remain absolutely committed to supporting freedom around the world and to standing with everyone in Iran who aspires for a free and democratic future. And there is hope. As all of you know, the Iranian regime has never been weaker than it is today. 4 out of 5 Iranians now live below the poverty line. Corruption is at an all-time high. The Iranian people are fed up, ready for change. The regime's sole focus now is on maintaining its precarious grip on power, which grows weaker by the day. That's no question why they selected Ebrahim Raisi to serve as the Iranian president. I hardly need to tell many of you just how evil Raisi is. Many of you in this room, many of you looking on, lost loved ones at Raisi's hand. He lost homes and livelihoods. You bear the scars of his brutality in your bodies. Some of you barely escaped with your lives. But today, let me say again, his crimes will not go unpunished. Ebrahim Raisi is unworthy of leading the great nation of Iran. He must be removed from office by the people of Iran and prosecuted for crimes against humanity and genocide. Today, the resistance movement in Iran has never been stronger. Every day, we're inspired by the courage of young women and men taking to the streets without regard to their personal safety to stand for a free and democratic future. Resistance units in Iran are the wellspring of hope for the Iranian people. They're an engine for change from within during the uprisings and continued protests. And every day they're growing stronger while the regime grows weaker. With MEK's leadership, teachers, workers, retirees have courageously taken to the streets in over 280 cities in 31 provinces. Students from more than 130 universities, even high school students, have brought new energy to the cause. Protests used to be isolated and sporadic. Now, as the world media watches what they can, protests have been going on nonstop for the last 6 months. The regime, not surprisingly, has brutally murdered hundreds in the streets. Tens of thousands have been unjustly arrested, yet the Iranian people remain defiant and continue to stand for freedom. I truly believe this is not just another protest. It's a revolution in the making. And it's owing to the confidence and faith of all of you, and most especially to the brave Iranians, especially the women who've paid an enormous price, leading the decades-long fight for freedom and justice. The Iranian people, by all accounts, are more united than ever before. Hope is a flame in the heart of freedom-loving men and women, and that flame is burning brighter than ever before, thanks to all of you. All of you who stand unequivocally on the side of the Iranian people in support of their resistance units. You know, one of the biggest lies of the ruling regime to the world is that there's no alternative to the status quo. But you know different. There is an alternative. A well-organized, fully prepared, perfectly qualified, popularly supported alternative. And I want to thank Maryam Rajavi for her outstanding leadership and vision. You are an inspiration to the world. And the regime should know that we're not fooled by the fake reformers and regime puppets pretending to be moderates. We know that many of these so-called reformers offer nothing more than false hope and the illusion of change. But the people of Iran want real change. And the real change is exactly what MEK offers. As I mentioned, it was a great honor for my wife and I to visit Ashraf 3 in Albania last year. We saw firsthand the dedication of the men and women gathered there, and this great movement to democracy, human rights, and the freedom for every citizen of Iran. Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan for the future of Iran will ensure freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and the freedom of every Iranian to choose their elected leaders. And I just received word arriving in Washington, D.C., word that I hope is an encouragement to all of you here, all of you looking on from Ashraf 3, and all those who long for freedom in Iran. That just this week, more than 220 members of the United States House of Representatives in both political parties co-sponsored a resolution expressing support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. I commend all the Iranian Americans in the room for encouraging our elected representatives to co-sponsor such action. And I urge every member of the House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, to join in this resolution. Now, the mullahs were outraged, but that's one more reason to co-sponsor the resolution. And those members of Congress should wear their outrage as a badge of honor. And again, let me say, I congratulate the Republicans and Democrats who stepped forward to take this stand for freedom. The regime in Tehran wants to trick the world into believing that the Iranian protesters want to return to dictatorship of the Shah. But we're not confused by their lies. The Iranian people do not want to replace one dictator with another. The Iranian people want to be free. And I know that Iran can be a great nation once again. We all know the rich history of Iran, stretching back to time immemorial. It's a story of a people who've made boundless contributions to art, music, literature, science, commerce. And that story is far from over. Ronald Reagan said, and I quote, "There is no arsenal and no weapon in the arsenals of the world so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women." It was true then, and it's true today. We know the vast untapped potential of the Iranian people. Here in the United States, you've proven what people can achieve when they're free to pursue their hopes and dreams. So let me say from my heart, in this hour and this moment of opportunity, all free nations of the world must continue to support the Iranian people in their calls for freedom and demand that Iran's leaders cease their dangerous and destabilizing actions at home and abroad. We stand with the people of Iran because it is right, and because the regime in Tehran threatens the peace and security of the world. But have faith. An unbroken truth of history is that no oppressive regime can last forever. For inside the human heart is an unquenchable fire that burns to be free. Just as the Soviet Union collapsed under the weight of its own sins, someday and someday soon, that will be the fate of the oppressors in Iran. The day will come when the unelected Ayatollahs release their iron-fisted grip on Iran and her people, and a new, glorious day will dawn. A bright future will begin, ushering in an era of peace, prosperity, stability, and freedom for the good people of Iran and the world. Let that be our resolve, and let that be our prayer to a free Iran. Thank you, and God bless you.